The coffee
helps. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim Rambam, Hilchos, Niskei Mamen, prakim Vav, Zayin, and Ches, beginning with Perek Vav. We have been learning from the beginning that when it comes to certain damages that are considered unusual for one's animal to do, for the first few times the animal is called a tam, for which you have to pay only chatzi nezek migufay versus muad, the damages you have to pay nezek shalem the yafa sheben achasav. So Perek Vav is going to tell us how exactly does an animal go from a tam to a muad. More interestingly, we're going to learn in this chapter how an animal can go from a muad back to a tam, tshuva. And we're going to have various crossover similarities between the dinim of a muad, and for those of us who remember, we all learned, especially the married people, dinei vestos, how a woman goes to having a vest kavua. How are you oiker a vest kavua? Also, there's a repetition of 3. The way you establish and the way you uproot it is taka very similar to the dinim that we're going to have in this chapter. Perek Vav has 13 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph, says the Rambam. The word muad literally means forewarned. In other words, the animal is prone to do the damage that it did. That's important. In other words, the owner received testimony 3 days regarding this type of damage. If one's animal gored on the one day, or if it bit, or ravatz it laid upon, or bo'at if it kicked, or nagaf or butted, afilu meyapa'amim on the same day, then we say it's like once. Ein zamuad. Furthermore, if an animal that gored other animals on 3 days, on 3 different days, but you, the owner, only became aware of it on the same day, on a later day. No, it's a set of Eidim came to you, as we'll see in front of Beis Din, punkt on the same day. What they witnessed Sunday, another Eidim, what they witnessed Monday, another what they witnessed Tuesday. So it happened on 3 different days. You became aware of it on the same day. Harei ze safek, if that's huad, oy lo huad. And b'chlal chaver, remember, whenever the Rambam speaks about a doubt in dinei mamenis, the general rule will be is that prior to the damaged party receiving the money, the person who has to out of pocket can claim the side of the doubt, which will be more lenient for him and give less. And if the other person chapped the money, which he shouldn't have, but if he did it, then it flips. Then ha'maitzim ha'chaveri olavarai. Halacha beis. Ein ha'oda, which you should know, the words ha'oda comes from the words edus. It has to happen in front of the owners and only in front of Beis Din. This is big. It was if I was notified by my chaver who I trust, I'm not considered warned. It doesn't even count for once. 2 eidim in front of Beis Din. Shneimar, as it says, v'huad b'va'alav v'lo yishmerenu. And the words hu'ad from the words of eidos is only shayach ela bebeis din. Very good. Right, halacha gimel, a shor that belongs to a cheder shayt of a cotton, or mishu b'medina sayam. And this animal indeed shenakhu, they are going to be peturin. The owner is not liable because they are not present. So what does that mean? It means that society now can allow for such an animal to roam around wild. Gamzaloi. And now that there is an apitrupus, which is the responsibility for Beis Din to establish the testimony, if this animal gored once or more, has to be done in front of the apitrupus, which is quite amazing. Now let's go further. Okay, so now we know in front of whom do you have to give this warning? In front of the apitrupus. Im adayin hutam, so far mishalem chatzi nezek migufay. The apitrupus is not going to be out of pocket because the collection will come from the animal proper. But im huad by shleisha yamim, as we mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, in other words, it did these actions 3 times on 3 different days, and afterwards it did damage. In other words, the animal now is a muad. Mishalem nezek shalim min hayafa shebenichsei apetrupsim. You're going to wonder who would ever want to become an apetropus if they would be responsible. But indeed, or when the person who traveled returns, it's of course that the owners will have to compensate, pay back the money that was, so to say, laid out. But you have to have someone who's an adult, who's capable of taking responsibility. And indeed, if the animal is a muad, they are going to have to pay. Halacha hey. When you have animals that are used for sport, committing other nations, like the Spanish. In other words, they are being trained to gore. These sports, they're never called a muad. And even if they ended up killing a person, einam chayav misa, which is normally the rule by a shoyer that killed a person or any animal that killed a person, because the Torah begins the parsha by using the words ki yikach, when an ox gores, which implies the loy sheyagichu, not when it was prompted to gore, prompted against its nature. So the animal does something against its nature, it's not chayav. A Jew in Golus, we can tell the Eibishter, we're talking, we have a behema and our behemoths are going, that's because we're living in Golus. Halachava. Right, we mentioned this din yesterday, which is mamash amazing, an animal that became a mud and then it was sold, or after it became a mud, it was given to someone else. It has a new owner. Like we mentioned, an animal is an extension to a certain degree of its owner. Here in LA, they say that a people who own a dog, which we learned yesterday, you shouldn't, they end up looking similar. Don't get insulted over here. There's a certain connection. So the animal goes back to being a tam. Listen to the words. Wow. When you have a change in ownership, there's a change in halachic status. But that's when it's owned by someone else. But if it's a muad, but it belongs to the owner, and then he gives it to a guardian, or he borrows it in that direction, not in the opposite direction that we learned yesterday, from the shoyel to the mashal. No, in the first direction. That's not called a shinur ishus. Shame ba'olav. And now, there wasn't apetrupas as we had before in Allah Dalet because the owner was a chedesh. But v'nispakach a chedesh, or v'nishtapa ha'shoitam, or v'higdala katan. So now it's under the ownership of the real owner. Here we do say they are still mu'adam b'cheskasan, because even when it was under the care of an apetropus, he was only the apetropus. Shein ba'alav, the reshus ba'alav was still on top of it. So that's not called a shinui reshus. But gavaldik chavre, right? When there is a halachic reshus sheneshtana, automatically the status changes for the better. It goes back to it being a tam. Halacha 7. Behema shehu ada and v'chazra b'madav shehu adaba. Let's learn about tshuva. The animal changed its bad behavior. There is something called tshuva. The animal can go from a muad back into a tam, not only because the ownership changed, because the animal, the behema changed. Ketzad, for example, it became classified as a muad because it began to gore, and then it stopped goring. The Rambam is going to give more details. Even if the animal is still budding, but it stopped goring. Now, when do you say, itaka stopped? And you can have even children playing with this animal and it won't gore those children. When halachically do we say that the animal, so to say, did tshuva, no longer is a mazik? Guys, just to remind everyone, all the way in the beginning, in Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Beis, at the beginning of the second chapter, Halacha Aleph, when the Rambam speaks about Tshuva Gemura, same concept. Remember, watch Tshuva Gemura. If a person has in front of him the same opportunity, with the same needs, and he doesn't do it, the animal has the opportunity to gore and it doesn't. Beautiful, that's Tshuva. And it changes, it's now a tam. Halacha Ches. Interesting. If an animal is a muad, When an ox sees another ox, it gores. But that doesn't make him into a muad if it sees a goat. Certain dogs, they bark when they see a dog. When they see a person, they don't bark. It's interesting. They react wild only towards that. You don't extend it. Huat la adam, enamuat la behema. Huat la ktanim, right? Whether ktanim means children or even young animals. The grace ox, he's a bully when he sees little animals. When he sees big animals, he doesn't do anything yet. So he's not a muad for that. And if he taka gores for the first 3 times, the big animal, he's only a tam, nezek, chatzi nezek, only chatzi nezek. Lefika chemizik, esmin shumuat loy, for that, mishalom nezek shalom. But the im hizik, l'shara minim, mishalom chatzi nezek. This is mamash moedim. More than that, if the animal only gores on Shabbos, why would an animal only gore on Shabbos? Because people dress with colored clothing on Shabbos. You understand? So no, there's something in the environment that's affecting the animal's wildkeit. And taka 3 Shabbos in a row, the animal gores, or 3 Shabbos. Doesn't have to be in a row. Doesn't mean the animal is a muad to gore on Sunday. And therefore, no, the animal can constantly revert the status will change. The same ox will be mazik b'choil, b'shalom only chatzi nezik until it does so 3 times, until it becomes a muad. So now we speak about tshuva. So how does it go back to being a tam? So we said before, when it plays with kids, but here it has to play with kids on Shabbos. And even on that day, that is a raya that the animal was chayzer b'maisav haroyim at tshuva gemura, and it becomes a tam. Halacha 9. Nagach shor hayoim. Now we said before in Halacha Ches Yakir that a shoyd that is a muad leminoi is not a muad l'she'ena minoi. So now, if it only is goring oxen, doesn't mean it's going to gore a donkey. And if it did so for the first 3 times, only chatzi nezek. What happens if the animal became a muad l'chatchila by goring 3 different animals? Today it gored a shoyd, tomorrow a chamoy, and on the 3rd day a gomel, the golim ashlishi. We don't say, only a muad l'shoir v'chamoid v'gomel. No, then we already say, nasa muad l'koil. Ra'a shor hayom negachai, ulamacha ra'a shor v'loy negachai. Guys, I mentioned in the intro, by Vestos, we have the same concepts. But you have sirugin. So today it gored, tomorrow it didn't. And then on the 3rd time, which is now already on Thursday, it was every second day it alternated. It's a vildachaya on the alternate days. You're limited. It only gored oxen on every second day. It's mamish like Hilchos Vestas. You get it? Gewaldig. In other words, if now on Shabbos it sees an ox, if it gores the ox on Shabbos, the owner is chayiv nezek shalom.
Who's going to keep track of all this?
It doesn't matter. It's just a concept. Well, the truth is we don't own animals, but when you own animals, halacha yud, it makes, not that it has to make sense. It makes so much sense. See, the animal is every second day. Sometimes people are that way. One day they're happy, one day they're depressed. If they have a pattern, then they're predictable. Today is your happy day, today is your depressed day. Right? Halacha. So now let's begin to make things really spicy. So today, it gored an ox. The next day, it's suah chamoy v'loy negachai. Ubashlishi rasus u'negachai. Now we're really keeping cheshbon, Kevin. Ubaravira gomel v'loy negachai. Ubachamishira pered u'negachai. Ubashishira aroy v'loy negachai. Now nasamud l'sirugen lakoil. And therefore, ve'im nagach bayoim shu moed lo yechem shloshim mil zorak v'sirugem areiz muad. And if not, and if it was on the other day, then you're only a tam. We're going from a tam to a muad. We're learning Tanya now in the beginning. Same thing, mamish. The nefesh alik is during davening, during learning, you're good. Then you know the pattern. Then you leave the base medrash, you become a chamoy again. And there's a pattern. Know yourself, know your behemoth. Knowing your behemoth is the beginning of Tanya. That will give us more power for the godly soul right, to take control. You have to know the lathe. Halacha Yudal. Now let's go even more. This is, guys, mamish like vestos. Listen to this. There's such a thing. The size of the change of the moon is affecting the behemoth. So now, look how much we're jumping. The 15th of Nisan, the 16th of Iyar. What is this called, guys? What do we call this by Vestos? Haflaga. You know, if you remember, by Vestos, we also have the repetition of 3, but there's a big difference. By Vest HaChodesh, 3. Tezvav, tezvav, tezvav. The moment it's Haflagas, you have to have 4 Vestos to have 3 Haflagas. Same thing over here. If it's not on the same date, you're saying it's a full month plus a day. That has to happen 4 times. For you to make 3, you have to have 4, because in between the 4 is where you have 3. So this has to repeat itself 4 times. Here, 3 is not enough. The dilug has to happen 3 times, not the act 3 times. You have to have 3, mamish like by haflaga, right? Vest haflaga, you can't even have the first vest haflaga for a chassan and kala until there is the second vest. You have to have 2 vestos to have 1 dilug in between. Now, another thing, Shama, Koil Shofar V'Nagach, Koil Shofar V'Nagach, Koil Shofar V'Nagach, mamash like vestos. Then we say, then now there's a pattern. The pattern is connected to something external. Yeah, that if the shofar sounds again, then you better make sure your animal is really guarded. Because now, if you didn't hear a sounding of the shofar and your ox gored, bislachatam, I never knew it's going to gore without the shofar. You get it. Allah Yudbeis. Nagach shloisha shemarim shloisha yamim zachazem. Now, Mama's beautiful. From here until the end of the chapter, or at least this halacha. I want to just go back to vestos. Same thing. How when a woman has a veskavua, I know it sounds like a not nice comparison. I'm just saying the concept. So then you have to remember the dinim. How are you oiked it? If you remember, it's not so simple to be oiked a veskavua. If there is a change of pattern, you need to have 3 times to be oiked it. But on the other hand, when there's one change of pattern, we say maybe that's going to be an akira. So you count it from the new one as well. That will be the question over here. The animal gored 3 times every day. Once a day, it gored an ox. So what do you have? That Rambam began, right? In halacha ches, I think, that muat leminoi is not a muat l'she'ein aminoi. The ox is only a muat to gore oxen. On the 4th day, it gored another animal. But not just that. And on chamish nagach gamel. Now, what would happen, Yakir, if it gored on 3 days, zachar zeh, 1 day a shor, the next day a chamor, the next day in the gamel? The Rambam paskin, then it's a muat for all animals. But here you have but it began only l'shor. Then you only added a chamor and a gamel. You get the doubt. In other words, do we say that now it's a muat for everything? Same thing, just in a different pattern. Shanaga chamor, and then a gamel. Sunday a chamor, Monday a gamel, shnei yom zachazem. And on the 3rd day, it gore an ox. Now, if that would have stopped there, Akami would have said, it's a muad l'chol animals. But then it only kept on going to oxen. So harei a suffix in the latter case, if it's a muad l'shvarim bilvad, or no, or just like if it only would have gored 1 day, the chamoir, gamal, and shoyd, it's a muad lakoil. Just because it gored again a shoyd and again a shoyd, you can argue it's only 2. 2 is not enough to be oiked a previous pattern. So there's a suffix if it's only l'shvarim, because if you look at the 3rd day, look at that standalone. Shoyd, shoyd, shoyd. Shoyd, shoyd, shoyd is a muad only l'shoyd.
But the fact that he wore a
Gamal, so again, three times undoes the previous. So maybe it changed the pattern. Everything that we learned about. If you have Nagach B'Shal Shabbos and Shuach Arzu, like we mentioned, it's only going on Shabbos. So it only establishes a pattern of Muad L'Shabbos. But then it also did it on Sunday and on Monday. Now, Yakir, if it would have started Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, that's all the days. But it began only L'Shabbos. So now maybe the last Shabbos is connected to the old pattern. Sunday, Monday is only 2 times. If it would go Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Avada now for all days. But now you don't know whether the Shabbos is part of the old pattern or part of a new pattern any day. Oh, so it began by establishing any day. But then, not 3 Shabbos, that there's no doubt by 3, but 2 Shabbos. So the question is the first Shabbos the end of the first 3, and now it's a muad for all days, and you only had 2 Shabbos? It's not enough to oiker the old pattern, or no, Shabbos, only for Shabbos. Okay. And now, bottom line, I mean, the Rambam mentioned this is not the only time, but here again, the Rambam wants to make it clear. Whenever the Rambam writes Safek, what's the B'poel Mamish? Halacha Yud Gimel, the final halacha. The mazik can side with the lenient side of the Safek, which will be only to pay Chatzi Nezek. But the Im Tafas Hanizak Nezek Shalom Ein Moitziyin Tviyodoim. Okay. So there's a certain amount of, even though we don't advocate for people to take the law in their own hand, but when people do so, sometimes they benefit from it. It's called Don Dina de Nafshi, which is a unique din in Choshen Mishpat, unlike other areas of halacha. Other areas of halacha, there's systems, like you have a suffix by food, by suffix deraisa l'chumra, suffix derabanan l'kulam. By mammon, it's a suffix. It remains a halachic suffix. And now you apply so now there's room for people to take the law in their own hand, to chat the guy's pants in the mikvah, and to say, no, I already have it on my shus. And people do that, including the pants in the mikvah. I saw that also, because you owe me money, and now you're the moitzi, I'm the muhsak. Okay, Perek Zayin, my friends. I mean, what a day. Perek Zayin, if you remember, we already mentioned yesterday a little bit about Shemitah. So let's just take a quick step back. Even though I'm chayiv if my animal damages, because memoina hizik, and you can argue memoina hizik whether I'm guilty or innocent. If my mammon is my hand, I would be chayiv no matter what. But we don't say it like that way. We say that memoina hizik is machayiv me because I did not do shemitah. There is a certain part of my lack of shemitah is part of the reason why I'm chayiv. Now, when it comes to guarding, there's different levels of guardianship, and we're going to have shemitah pchusa, Shmita very weak, Shmita Mu'ula, Shmita Kira'ui, and we're going to see some amazing concepts of how the level of Shmita will change in its result, whether I'm going to be chayiv or not. Oh, guys, we're going to learn something that, when everything makes sense, there's a certain simcha. You learn, I'm a chayiv, makes sense. Sometimes the joy is when the halach is exactly the opposite of the way you think. I'm a chayiv because God is our teacher. And he's telling us to think different. That's what we're going to have in the beginning. And the ikid will be like this, which is a big approach. When your animal goes from a tam to a muad, there could be 2 ways of looking at it. This is going back to yeshiva, my yeshiva years, Gan Eden. That is that it's a new thing. There's a tam and there's a muad. The Rambam doesn't view it that way. A muad is a tam plus, or a big cloud. And you'll see the nafkamina in a moment. What I mean by that. In other words, a muad is not a new mitzias. Of course, lamay nafkamina. A tam pays half, a muad pays all. A tam you can only collect from the animal. A muad you can collect from all of the property of the owners. We'll see there are certain scenarios that the shmita, as far as a muad is concerned, is good. You did shmita. You should be exempt. If you would have been a tam, you need a bigger level of shmita. So if the animal is a muad, and you did a shmita that covers the muad, you're going to have to pay chatzi nezek. That's going to be a gavaldik thing because sad tamus b'mekoyma oimedas. That's going to be the words. We're going to learn another big rule. I know we didn't learn about board yet. So far, the Rambam spoke about the 3 ovis, nezikin, by Yashoy. Now, what we remember the Mishnah, right? Board, you chayiv for a board. And guys, if I make a board, the big chiddush here, the board does not belong to me. Nevertheless, the Torah says that if in the board falls, it falls your animal, I'm chayiv to pay. Hold on. I want to know something, Rabbi Chaim. If my shor makes a board, And in this chapter, we're going to learn, I'm not going to be chayiv. Don't forget, boyd itself is a chiddush. It's not mine. Melef Aimina. You can also argue, my ox made a boyd, I should have stopped it from happening. I know that, and I didn't. I know that. But it's already more indirect. That will be a big cloud that we're going to have on this chapter. We're going to have in Perek. It's a very important chapter. How do you make the evaluation by a damage? I know that Rambam already gave one example, but we're going to focus on it. That means if my ox killed your ox, let's say your ox was worth $200, but the carcass is worth $50. We don't say that I'm the mazik, that I have to eat up the carcass. In other words, I have to be metapel in it and sell it, and I have to give you, no. I get to give you back the carcass. And tell you 1 second, your animal was worth 200, this is worth 50. All the damage now is the 150. And for that, Tam, Chatzi, and Muad Nezek Shalom. Even though there's a certain balance, there's a certain amount of work that the carcass will impose on the mazik, but at the end, he can use that for part payment to the nizak and the ikir. When you make this evaluation now they'll have a nukasha. If I get, I'm the mazik, you're the nizik. If I mazik you and you get the carcass, how do we evaluate the carcass? Is it how much was it worth when I killed it, when my animal killed it? Or how much is it worth now that we are in Beis Din? And it can fluctuate. And who is going to benefit or lose from those fluctuations? All of this is in Perek Zayin. That's 13 halachas, but it's a big Perek. Big meaning. All these concepts are like, it's like almost like Perek halach. In the first chapter, all of the klalim. Perek Zayin halacha. Shoyer shekeshorei ba'olav b'moiseiro. So you have an ox, and you tied it with a rope, and not only that, you locked the door. It's called karoi. Guys, remember the words karoi means you did it appropriately. Karoi means that if there would be a ruach she'ena mitzuya, the door would be bust open. But at least it's beruach mitzuya. Now you did not amazing guardianship, but you acted responsibly, and the animal went out nevertheless, and it was mazik. Let's get the mashal. It gored. So guys, remember this then. Even when you do a average shemirah, if the animal is a tam, you have to pay chatzi nezek. Actually, the whole reason why the Torah is machayev you to pay chatzi nezek, the Torah wants for people to do shmira mu'ula. Shmira Chabad Sola has shmira mu'ula. Don't count how many guns we have over here. Shmira mu'ula. The Eibishter ones from Chayis, when there's behemoths, shmira mu'ula. And listen to this, guys. If you're not jumping, you should jump. But if the animal is a muad, you would argue if the animal is a muad, you know the animal is going to damage. You would think das balabatim is mama shepach das toida. The animal is a muad. For sure, I have to do shmira mu'ula. Mishtamas. The animal is a muad. Doing average shmira is enough. Has better. Shenemar v'lo yish menenu ba'alav. B'negeya a muad. From here, we understand ha'im shemaroi. If you did guard it, in other words, if you didn't do a amazing shmira, but if you did the average shmira, you tied it up, you locked the door, patur, because it's called shamur. You appreciate this? It was worth to wake up for this. If the animal is a muad and you did normal shmira, you are exempt. If the animal is not a muad, then only shmira mu'ula will exempt you of chatzi nezek. But now, like we spoken in the intro, even though the Rambam writes the words pater, what does pater sound like to you? In ganzen pater, you're not in ganzen pater, because like we mentioned, that sad kamus v'mekoymo emedus, a muad is a kam plus. A muad is not like a new din. So if I did an average shemira, and we're saying that for as far as kam is concerned, I'm still going to be chayv chatzi nezek. So this is a case where my animal can be a muad, and I'll pay the chatzi nezek. Pater doesn't mean completely pater. We'll see this clearly in the Rambam soon. Now, v'im hizik b'davar shum muad loy mitchilasoi kegon shachal levar amaroim loy oy shiba beragli kederach hiluchai pater milashalem. I'll explain to you in a moment what that means. Pater milashalem. Okay, here we're speaking about shein and regel. What is shein and regel, Danny? Shein and regel are activities where the animal is, it's never a tam. Here you tackle completely pater. because the animal is never a tam. It's muad netchilas. Now, what happens if the animal is doing something which animals begin out as a tam, which is negicha, but they're going into another nuance. It gored only with its right horn, and it gored, and like we learned in the previous chapter, 3 days in a row. So it's a muad that it uses the right horn to gore. First of all, ain't a muad l'ken small. Now, the yotza achar sheshomri karoi. Karoi means, like in the beginning of Hala, it's called not a shmira mu'ula, not a gavaldik shmira, no normal shmira. And the nagach bein bekaden yamin, they bekaden small. What do you do, guys? You pay chatzi nezek. 1 second, what are you talking about? Didn't the Rambam just say it was muad liyamin? If it's muad liyamin and you did a shmira karoi, you should be exempt. No, that's the point that Rambam is trying to make. When do we say that if you did a shmira average, and if the animal is a muad, you're potter? Yeah, shein v'regel, it's never a tam. You take a potter completely. But any area in which the animal began as a tam, even though now it's a muad, keren yamin, even though you did shmira enough to exempt you midin muad, it doesn't take away its din of tam. What's that potter? Potter from the other hand. I did a shmira puchusa, let's call this a shmira puchusa, kiroi, I'm only potter from the muad. Okay, halacha gimel. The animal injures a person. In other words, what's the Rambam's chiddush over here? Atkan, the Rambam was speaking about shoyd, shonagach shoyd. One might have thought that shoyd, shonagach adam, and shoyd, shonagach shoyd is the same din. Furthermore, however, if I damage a person, as we're going to learn later, not only am I chayiv for nezek, but there are times that I'll be chayiv to pay 5 different payments. When am I chayiv all of the 5? Tzad, nezek, sheves, ribe, and boishes. If Adam was mazik Adam, if a shoyd is mazik Adam, taka chayiv for the nezek. Tam and muad, but only nezek. But upater min hasheves, umin aboishes, umin atzar, umin aripui. Because arba dvarim elu lo yichiva toida behem el adam shchava b'chaveiroi. Avo behemte shchava b'chaveiroi. Hareze kemisha zika memoinoi. If my animal damaged you, it's just like if my animal damaged your animal, your property. That watch ain't a chayiv elanezik bilvad. And furthermore, like the Rambam wrote, if my animal did the damage through goring lamashal, just like shoyd shenagach shoyd for the first 3 times as a din of a tam, same thing is ba'adam. Lefikach shoyroi, that all it did was it a shame. It didn't even do any nezek. I'm going to be completely exempt. I'm not chayiv for the busha that my animal causes. Now, if I, God forbid, were to shame you, then I'll be chayiv just for the busha, as we'll learn, God willing, in Hilchas Chayv Elamaz. Another detail. If my ox, God forbid, injured my father or mother. Now, guys, a capital sin, you get killed in Beis Din. Person is machal Shabbos, chayiv skila, capital sin. So if I burned down your grain heap on Shabbos, I did 2 things. I burned. I also was mazik your money through the same act. And there's a rule called kam leibe derabamine. Whenever I do one act that has 2 different penalties, I only get the larger penalty. So in those cases, if I was the one that did it, I'm not going to be chayiv to pay for money because I'm chayiv misa. But if my animal, God forbid, damaged my father, now that we said all I'm chayiv for is for the din of mamanis part of it, I'll be chayiv. Unlike if he because of the rule of kamlei halacha dalet. Machnish shoyroi. And yes, we did touch about this yesterday, but let's gonna further expand this. So yeah, in the beginning in Perek Aleph, Chevra Halkat Freilach, we had about Shusan Nizak versus the Shusan Abed. Now, not that my animal went into the Shusan Nizak. Listen to what happened. Someone brought their animal into the Chatzar Balabayis. The owner never allowed you to bring your animal in there. And while your animal was there, the the balabais is the mazik. In other words, the animal belonging to the home that I had no permission to be in there, to bring my stuff in there, his shoyd gored my animal that was there shaloi b'reshus. Oin l'shachay kalboy that he should not have been raising. You can say that you can't raise a kalb. No, it was in his reshus. The din is potter, right? What does the balabayis tell the balashoyd? Who gave you permission to enter? I never gave you permission to enter. Now, the Rambam is adding this din over here because you would think, since you had no reshus to be there, right away pay nezek shalom. We don't say that either. But even though you went shaloi v'reshus, if the act of nezek was not usual, im tamu, you only pay chatzi nezek. Everything is a chiddush here. It's not going to be worse than that. It's not worse than that, even though you had no reshus to be there. In other words, guys, there's the Baal HaShoyd and the Balabais. The Baal HaShoyd brought a shoyd, lit a shusoi shel ha-balabais without the reshus of the Balabais. The Balabais has a boyd in his backyard, and the Baal HaShoyd's ox falls in there. But listen to what happened. We're not focusing on the damage that happened to the ox. But when the ox of the Baal HaShoyd fell in there, it ruined the waters. The hivish asmeimav. Im hivish miyad b'shas nefilam. Chayiv b'niske mayim, because that's called direct damage. So what did we just learn? If my shoyd does damage in your reshus, I'm chayiv to pay. But the machar zman, then I'm going to be potter. Why? Shahadei nasa hashoyd tekala kiboy. In other words, the shoyd itself, if my shoyd in your boyd is his presence there, I don't know what la'achar zman means, is causing your waters to get ruined. So I'm viewing my shoyd like a boyd. It's a rolling boyd. Bahamayim in the other person's boyd are like kalim, which is getting ruined. That's a big rule. Guys, we're going to learn a whole chapter about din boyd, if you remember. It says, remember that Chumash Rashi, shoyd chamoid, shoyd v'loy adam chamor v'loy kalim. That's a big zeta psychosis.
So I hear the ox is looked on as the board.
Yes.
And the board is looked on like a kalim.
No. The mime, what? The mime is a kalim. It's something that has value. It's not a living thing. It's an inanimate thing that has value that got ruined. We're not done yet. Very big rules. Now, all of this chevre is when the Baal HaShoyd brought his shoyd l'reshus, Balabayis shaloi b'reshusay. Chevra, hold your heads. Guys, we're in the middle of halacha. Hey, if he got permission. So now, first of all, Baal HaShoyd patur. What's pshat? That when the Baal HaChotzim, when the Balabas gave permission to someone to bring his ox in there, into the Chatzer, he was basically saying, I'm going to watch over my boyd. So if my shoyd fell into his boyd and it right away ruined the waters, that's pshat of reshus. The Baal HaChotzim, who tells someone, you can bring your ox into my yard, is going to guard his stuff from your animal. That's part of his giving you permission. But the im kibel olav bal habayis lishmoid. One second, but what not? What happens if the ox got hurt? Is he chayiv to pay? No. I'm thinking we're Americans. Here it's mamash vita sodoim. This is so much sense. This makes so much sense. If I'm the balachatza, you're the balashoy. If I tell you, you can bring your animal, you can come and visit me with your animal. If your animal fell into my boyd and got hurt, I'm not chayiv to pay. I'm saying this whole thing that in America, if I go into your store and I slip and I sue you, is mamash sodoim. It's like fear. Fear really is. I gave you the shus to come into my property. Your animal damaged my stuff. You don't have to pay me. Because when I gave you permission, I meant to say I'm going to guard my stuff, but I'm not chayiv to guard your stuff. If your animal got hurt in my property, I'm exempt. Just because I gave you the shoes, I didn't mean to say that I'm not going to guard your animal. But if wait, I'm implying, in other words, the first line, whoever has a chayenu. When we say what does pater mean, Danny? It means pater if the shoyer was mazik the mayim.
Right.
But if the shoyer got hurt in my board, if I'm the balachatzer, I'm not chayiv to pay. When I allow you, that's mamash. If I have a store and you go in there and you get hurt, I'm not chayiv to pay you anything. I gave you the shoes to go in there, but if I told you then kibul all of bal habayis lishmar, if the bal habayis says, "I thank you for giving," I make sure my animal doesn't damage. You have to know what they spoke out.
Just to be clear, this means if the bal chutzer accepts responsibility, and he is responsible for the damage to the ox.
No, befeidish not. We're speaking about the water. Halacha is no.
It suffers. It suffers meaning the ox.
No.
From falling into the cistern.
No, he's potted for any damage that the ox caused. You have to be the halacha hey. The whole halacha hey is when the ox, first the Rambam begins halacha hey, if the ox falls into the water and later the water gets ruined, however, you're exempt. But if the ox damages the water, the Baal HaShoyer is chayv. If the owner gave the shoes, then the Baal HaShoyer is not chayv to pay for the water. The whole thing, the ox who gets hurt, the Baal HaChotzer is not chayv even if he gave the shoes. Clear, no doubt. Halacha vav. Nice, good machlokes. Now we're waking up over here. Every halach is a mountain. Hichnis shoyre lechatzar balabayis shaloi b'reshus. You know, hello, and v'hizik balabayis. Oy shehuzak boy balabayis. Oy shechafar b'chatzar b'reshichan u'ma'arois. In all of these cases, since the Baal HaShoyer had no permission, Baal HaShoyer chayv b'niskei chatzar. And even in this case, I just want to clarify this one-liner. Guys, if I have a bird in my yard, I'm not chayiv that quick. It means that if I was mafkir my reshus, that's what it means. Even though I did not make the bird. The guy who made the bird is chayiv to pay me for the damage in my yard. Once the bird is in my yard, if I'm mafkir my yard, it's considered my bird. Balachatzer still is chayiv. That's what it means.
What if you didn't know about it?
No, so it's now. Does that mean because he knew and he didn't, or does it even mean he should have known before you mafkir your property, giving it to the public? That's the din of the boy. Don't give it with a boy. I don't know. Now, one thing I can tell you something else. The Baal HaShoyer is not chayiv. I want to tell you this is a big rule, guys. If I make a boy, I'm chayiv. If my shoyer makes a boy, the Baal HaShoyer is not chayiv. Remember that. Halacha zayin. Yes. Halacha zayin. Hizik balabayis es HaShoyer. Guys, we're continuing from halacha vav. So there's the Baal HaChatzer and the Baal HaShoyer. The Baal HaShoyer had no permission, and the owner damaged the ox. He didn't do it on purpose. He never knew there's an ox in there. Pater. Because however, see, that's beautiful. Even though you brought your animal on my property, so what did we learn yet? We learned yesterday in the last chapter that if your animal is coming into my, and I warned you three times, then I can shecht your animal. Remember, I had to warn you first. Just because your animal came into my property, if I b'shoigig hurt your animal, then I'm pater. But I don't have the right to be amazed at hurt it. I did it on purpose. I have the permission to get rid of it. This is Torah, Gan Eden. And all the other halachas here is mamash midas sudoim. And you can't live over here. Mamash, you can't live. This whole thing of worrying that people are going to get hurt in your property doesn't work that way.
You have to warn the owner, or you have to just tell the animal to leave 3 times?
So what we learned yesterday was that if I tell even deer, I can't stomp kill it, I shecht it. I only can shecht it. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to shach you.
No, but the owner has
to be told. Let's go back to the beginning of Pedic K. Beginning, I just read it. You're going back. That Rambam was you put these two things together. That Allah, your animal. It happens the whole time. Maybe I have a neighbor with a cat coming into it ate up my couches. So even before the damage, you warned the owner. If the owner didn't prevent it, then I can shach my neighbor's cat. Only shach it.
And then it goes to the owner.
Of course. And maybe I can charge him for the shechita. My neighbor once pulled out a shotgun, so I won't do it to my neighbor. Okay. He's good for other security, but you have to be careful. There's a mila of having vigilante people. Okay, halacha ches. Now, the next topic, which will go more or less until the end of the chapter, is like we mentioned, shamin linizakin. That's the cloud. So nachamol, whether it's tam, whether it's muad. My animal gored your animal, let's just say. And your animal used to be worth 200. Let's say my animal is a muad. You don't say, give me 200. No. Because the carcass, oichet, has some worth. You don't want to have a carcass. I made your animal into a carcass. Still, the carcass is the niziks, and the difference the mazik has to pay. We're going to learn details in this chapter. I still have to make sure to get you the carcass. There's some work on me. It's not completely you get the carcass, but shaman linizakin to the benefit of the mazik to a certain degree. If I damage, that's even if I damage your keli, or my animal damaged your keli, you did the damage, you eat up the broken keli and pay the whole value. It would have sounded fair because the nizak nabach the victim. No, Elohim the base that makes an evaluation. Even the shards are worth something. And the noise like kol apchas if he's a muad, or chatzi pchas if it was a tam. That's a befedish pasuk in Mishpatim where it says v'hameis hi eloi. Who's the loy? The loy is it belongs to the one whose property was damaged. It belongs to the nizak. Now comes a kasha. Okay, now that we established that, now we open up a Pandora's box, as they say. If my animal damaged your animal today is Tuesday, and today the carcass is worth $10. What happens is by the time you went to the basin, there is a fluctuation in price. What happens now? Shas misa, shas hamada. It depends in what direction. If by the time you went to basin, the carcass is worth even less, which I think is the norm, a fresh carcass, an old carcass, then we say ala nizak. You know why? Because the nizak should have sold the carcass right away. We expected nizak should know some dinner. In other words, he was able to right away monetize it. You didn't monetize it, and the Torah says that the nizak has to deal with the carcass. So why should the mazik be chayiv? However, what happens if it goes in the other direction? Shvach hanavela, which means the carcass, when my animal...
This is a little disrespect to me.
No, it doesn't.
It makes sense to you, but like, hey, you did the damage to me, and I have to deal with selling the dead animal?
Yes, you do.
Oh, you sell the dead animal.
It doesn't work that way. That's the whole din Torah. There's today, even das balabat in the global world, go to a good psychologist, every victim has their part. Not blaming the victim. No, it's a lock and a key. Epis, you're involved. Why did my animal gore your animal? Epis has to be on you.
You're the animal came into my yard.
Yep.
Killed my animal.
Yes.
And I gotta sell it.
Yes, you do. And one second.
You never had the money. You had an animal.
Correct.
So you have to deal with it anyway to get money.
No, but there. No.
Animal.
Okay, right. Now, Shvach Hanavela, guys, let's go in the other direction. You can say, let's be fair. If the nizik owns it, so what happens if when my animal killed your animal, the carcass was worth 50. Tomorrow, when we go to Basin, it's worth 100. The nizik can say, no. 50, you have a credit, and pay me the difference. No. If the animal goes up, the benefit is divided equal. This is going to put salt on the Gabai's wound, even more flavor. We're not consistent. Like you would argue, if it's the niziks, let him at least benefit if it goes up. No, if it goes down, the price from Misa to Hamad Bedin. How much was it worth? The moment, it means if your animal kills my animal, I know I came to the Rambam, the first thing I'm doing is I'm selling the carcass.
Well, okay, but let's say today it's 50, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow. So now it's 100. What does it mean we split it? Why was it today's 100? Sell it?
No, we don't do that. The mazik will benefit from it. The mazik will benefit from it. Some of it. The Rambam will speak out the numbers. For example, huh? That's next chapter. A big cloud that if that an ox of a Jew that gored an ox of a goy, we deal the din of the mamayna the way the goy's halachas are. We're going to get to that in the next chapter. God willing. So Ketzad Shoy Shavu Masayim. I'm saying Shoy Shavu Masayim, guys. Just remember that detail because if my animal is a tam, you can only get payment migufa. That's why we're giving about that number. So my animal is worth 200, and it gored. No, I'm sorry. The victim's ox. The ox was worth 200. And I'm the mazik over here. So first thing we learned from Shaman Lenizakin, I don't have to pay 200. Why should I pay 200? The carcass is worth something. That's the first point. So how much damage did I do, guys? Hulk up, 100. Now, the carcass is only worth 80. So now, how much damage did I do if you were to measure it now, 120? Now, the Rambam is saying these numbers, it's not whether I pay 100 or 120. Another nuance, if I'm a tam, I only pay half. So it's going to be 50. It's going to go the same numbers, right? Or 60. And more than that, and not 60. Oh, that's simple, right? So that's chasan avela. Now, watch shvachan avela, and watch shvachan avela that you divided. Halacha yud. Same guys. My animal killed. Your animal was worth 200. Nothing is changing, guys. B'shas misa, your carcass was worth 100. We're continuing. Now, it's worth 120. Inflation. Who knows why? Oh, which means now I can argue. What damage did I do? I did 80. No, we say 90. Not 100, not 80, in between. And 90, if I'm a tam, 45, and if I'm a muat, 90. What? Simple. That's called you divided it up. If he was a muat, and if he was a tam, the Torah of Zeu Shenemar, V'gam Hameis Yechatsun, Shvach Hanavela Yechatsun.
Why 45?
No, because half a 90. Half a 90. In other words,
I only damaged 90 because he has 100.
Yeah, the emes is that I only damaged 80. In other words, the point is that in the beginning, my damage was 100.
When he's Mashal and Tishim, he's also getting 10. He's only paying 80.
No. He's giving the carcass back to the nizik.
The carcass is worth
the carcass is worth 120, and he's getting 90. He's getting 210. He's benefiting. Now, really, you can argue the nizik should have gotten 220, huh?
He's getting his 200.
No, he's getting more. He's getting because the carcass now is like worth 120.
Yeah, but 10 of the 20 goes to the.
No, if I'm the mazik and you're the nizik, your animal was worth 200, and when I killed your animal, the carcass was worth 100. And now you're keeping the carcass. The carcass is worth 120. Basin is telling me to give you 90. How much money did you get?
210.
Because the nizak benefited. Really, you can argue.
You should both benefit 10 though.
They each benefited 10. I don't have to give you.
Where's the other 10?
If I would give you 100, then you would benefit the whole thing. If you would argue that the carcass is only b'shas misa, then you would end up with 220. If I'm claiming the mazik. No. Look at now. I'm giving you back to 200. Then I would only have to pay you 80. We go half and half. Okay, weiter. Halacha Yudale, Shor Shavu Mosayim, Shenogach Shor Shavu Mosayim, Ve'evchisu Chamishim. How much damage did I cause? Chabra Halkop. How much damage did I cause? No, hello, 150, right? Now, like we mentioned, but you know how much it went up? It went, now it's worth 400. Mamash inflation. Guys, we're learning this tough. After Rebbe's yard, Hilula yard side, Tufshin, Pegimel, that's the inflation in America. But 1 second. And if you wouldn't have killed it, then the animal would have been worth 800.
Yeah, I think don't look at that.
So 1 second. So no. So what does the Nizik want? What does the Nizik want? The carcass now is worth 400. The animal alive now would have been worth 800. I get it that Shaman Lenizakim. The Nizik is demanding 400, the carcass, and 400. Right? Clear. Or if my animal was a tam, he's demanding the carcass and 200. That's what he's demanding. Says that Rambam, I don't care how the animal went up so much. Which means I'm going to pay either 25 or 50. Because, like I said, the animal was worth 200. When the animal died, it was worth 150. That means the damage was of 50. Muat 50, or like we don't do that. Kochash. Now, final.
The increase that we're talking about is 400, 800. That's
happened after B'Shas Misa.
Had it been a lot.
We're not talking about the value of the carcass.
We're learning, no. We're saying that first of all, the carcass also changed. Everything changed. It was real inflation. It was B'Shas Misa. The damage was 50. By the time I come to Beis Din, just to know what happened, the animal now is worth 400. The carcass is worth 400.
So how is this different than what the halacha before?
It's not.
Split the increase.
No.
It's also an increase.
No, because over here, it went beyond the value of the animal.
But that becomes the new value.
We don't view it that way. I think that's the word of it. It's beyond the value of the animal, even when it was alive. It didn't go up to $10. Then if we were to split the increase, you know what would happen maybe? You would owe me money. If we allow to say, when my animal killed your animal was worth 150, now it's worth 400, which means the animal went up how much? Price 250. Half and half. So let you give me money. We don't do that. That's the word. That's me, the Sadoim. My animal damages your animal, then you owe me money. Okay, right. Let's go right. Kochash, machmas, hamaka, b'shas badin. Now another very big din. When the Rambam brought in the beginning, I just want to go back to that. To whoever has a chayenu, it's easy to look at it. The first line on top of the other amid, that pachas adavela al hanizik. What was the logic? The logic was, there is a logic. The logic is that the nizik should have showed the carcass right away. Because logically, just to know, when there's a carcass, every day that goes, it has less value. So the nizik has to eat the difference. If my animal damaged your animal and it didn't kill it, it only weakened it. Now, if the animal will recuperate, the owner should not sell it. He didn't know whether he should sell it or not. Turned out that when I damaged your animal, it was devalued. It was a broken bone. And as time went on, it got worth less. So here we say, here's one time where the mazik has to own all of that difference. That's the logic. In other words, if my animal damaged you, it was worth 200. When I injured your animal, it was worth 100. Which means, how much did I damage? 100. By the time we went to Beis Din, your animal was only worth 50 because the wound made it worse. I have to pay 150. I cannot argue with the nizik by death. The nizik, the victim is somewhere, we sell the carcass. Here, the nizik can say, I didn't know my animal will get worth less. I thought my animal was going to recuperate. You damaged my animal. It's getting worse and worse and worse right now. And Taka and the nizik gets all of the nizik will get the difference. Right there. Allah Yud Beis, Ishbiach, Hamazik. The ox that was mazik, B'Shas Hamada Badin, the other direction. Now you just to appreciate, why did the Rambam write in Halacha Yud, how much was the mazik's animal worth? Because by a tam, you only get paid migufay. What happens if when he did the damage, the migufay didn't cover the chatzi nezik? But B'Shas Hamada Badin, the gufay of the mazik is worth more money. So the nizik now is claiming, now I'm going to get my chatzi nezik migufay. Shbiach hamazik b'shas hamad badin. If the animal of the mazik got worth more because the owner of the mazik fed the animal, then einoi mishtalim mimenu ela masher ha'isha b'shas sheizik. And if, Danny, the worth of the animal, while my animal damage was worth 100, and the Hatzi Nezik was 200, you're only going to get 100. But so then God made my animal worth more for the Nezik. Beautiful.
There needs to be a lot of calculations.
Yes. You have to, how? Yeah. So now, in other words, we learned both how we evaluate as far as the carcass. We also many times have to evaluate the value of the mazik's animal, and if there's a fluctuation between damage and hamada bedin, sometimes it can be to the benefit of the nizar. Final halacha yud gimel al hamazik. So the carcass goes to the nizar, but at least there's a balance. The nizar doesn't have to get the carcass. The mazik has to bring the carcass to him, and then pay the difference of money. We don't go ad kedei kach. You go get your animal out of the ditch. Al hamazik l'troich ben avela. Ad shemamtzi yoisel nizik. He has to bring it to the nizik. Ketzah. Keep going. Shenafal asher leboy. Umeis. And the Torah is machadish that the boy, the bal haboy, he doesn't own it, but he's chayiv for the damages, right? Shenafal shama asher chaboy. Mala hanavela min aboy. Who has to go out of pocket to get the carcass? The mazik has, and he gives it to the nizik, and then he pays him the difference. And as we learned before, Shenemar Kesed Yoshev Lebaolav Hamesi Yaloi. So Malame Shu Chayv Lahashav Sanavela Vesam Chashabaras Machailan. Or if Yemachai Chatzi Abchas Kamosh Bayarno. So really it's a balance and not fully on the Nizik. Today's final chapter, we got to get moving. Perik Ches. Now, Yakir asked about the Goy. This chapter will deal with a lot. All of the dinim that we are learning, guys, is between two commoners, even between partners. But it's shoy re'eyu. If my ox damaged a shoy of hegdish, if my ox got damaged from a shoy of hegdish, we're going to have other dinim. If an animal belonging to hefker damaged, we're going to have other dinim. If a shoy of a Jew re'eyu v'lo shel goy damaged the ox of a goy, we'll have different dinim. We're going to have more on the nafkamina of how you collect damages from a tam, which is only migufay, versus from a mu'at that is miyafashav and a chasav. And finally, in this chapter, we're going to learn about the onus of proof that we have to have, like we said, mamish, two witnesses that are kosher to be witnesses, saying testimony in a basin. And not that since animals normally damage each other out there in the field, who's out there? Face a shepherd. It's not in a place where you have two Adam. I'm sorry. Dinah the Mamayna, the onus of proof has to be like you have all other hilchas. The Mamayna, you have to have two kosher witnesses, as we'll see in this chapter. Perik Ches has 14 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. Shor shel Yisrael, shenagach shor shel hegdish. Or the other way around. A shor shel hegdish, shenagach shor shel Yisrael. In both directions, Chevra completely potted. You know what? I did not do damage. Remember that the fact that my animal who does damages is machayev, the owner is a chiddush. Even though Memoyne Hizek and even though Sholei Shamar, so what? I can always argue Sholei Shamar is max grama. Memoyne Hizek is not me. Like I mentioned again, if my minor child damages you, I'll be din, I'm not chayev to compensate. I didn't do the damage. My kid did the damage. Go get from him. Okay. Now, what's called kachim? Another nuance. Now we have to go back a little. Sifik Kedusha, guys, remember one thing. Our animals called mam and bailam. So the Rambam makes a simple link. Any animal for which if someone inadvertently misappropriates would be chayiv me'ilah, that's called shar shel hegdish, kachei Hashem. Any animal for which there's no chayiv me'ilah is not called hegdish. Big nafkamina. Kachei kalam, abyssal geshmak. Kachei me'ilah is right away. Kachei kalim is only subject to me'ilah after shechita, only for the emurim. So therefore, however, the moment that psulei hamikdashim, yesh lehem din nezakin, bein sheziku, bein shehusku. Why? Because the moment Hegdish is allowed to be played an animal, liyos chulin. They're not called kachei Hashem. Halacha base. Shlamim is kachei kalim. Guys, remember, if I'm magdish my kachim kalim, until the shechita, there's no me'ilah. It's called mama and bailam. So shlamim sheziku goyvim ibsarim. Another deal. Goyvim ibsarim means, don't forget that tam is megufay. Megufay. You goyvim from the good. Now the gufay is not the emurim. Like chatzin ezek megufay, not the parts that are going to be going on the altar. The einu goyvim minabotz kenegen emurim. Because emurim shal kachei kalim are me'alam mehem k'ma shivera milchas me'ilah.
How's that fair? Is that a big animal?
No, actually, the Rambam's going to write. Don't forget, kachei kalim. I know they have to be eaten only in the shlamim at HaKodesh, but I can invite you to eat my shlamim. So if my shlamim was mazikyu, you get to eat the meat. You have to eat it in Yerushalayim. L'shnei yom v'layla echad.
So the nizik's going to wait till he brings his korban.
Yeah. Gavaldik. You're not happy, yeah? The nizik has a leg. Don't be a nizik. That's the bottom line. Venishkin is. Toida is also kachei kalim. You know, it's only yom v'layla, whatever the rules are. Goyvim ibsara. Oh, to ain't goyvim min halechem aba ima. Why? She'ein halechem b'chlal habasar. And guys, kam is goyva migufay. The lachme, the 36 that end up with the 40 breads, but 4 of them go to the kahanim. The 36 that remain is not migufay. Halach gimel navigates and goitza. That's how do you demand it? Sheyoichel hanizik. And the nizik is the one that brings the chabura. He's saying it practically because since you have to finish the animal, even if it's shnei yamim, you have to finish it. So you end up bringing chevra. The nizik brings him and his party. Min abasar b'kedusha. B'kedusha means in Yerushalayim with all the dinim, you can't be tamei. How much? Keneged only chatzi nezik shalei. For example, the ketzanu goyvim keneged aimurim. A good example. Like okay, guys, you have a shlamim. You're a shorsh shlamim mazik me, but how much? 2 dinar damage. So chatzi nezik is 1 dinar. Let's begin. That 1 dinar I can only collect from your animal. Now I want to know something. How much is your meat worth? If of the kachim, if you're going to cheshbin habasar im oimurim shavashnei dinarim v'habasar b'leimurim shava dinar v'chetzi. So eno goiva shnei shalishei habasar. Shnei shalishei habasar would be 1 dinar's worth. I don't get to collect the whole dinar's worth. Only half. Elachatzi abasar bovad. Okay, right. Halacha. Chen shoyr ha'hefker shehizik. Next thing. Potter. Now, what does it mean, potter? I don't understand. Who be chayv? So he's going to say, if someone then chapped a shoyr from hefker. Afterwards. The question was Ketzah. That was the question. If an animal of hefker was mazik my property, if I'll chop that animal, I'm not saying that I'm getting compensation for the damage. I got it's mine. And the koydem sheyispois oise hanizak badin amadacher v'zachaboy. And what does the nizak claim? The nizak claims you didn't even have the right to take it because it was already lean to cover the chatzi nezek. We don't say that. Harei potter. Why? Because since b'shas negicha it had no owners, there is no lien on that animal. No, it's my animal. And va'achar shehizik, I'm magdish it or I'm mafkid it. Even here, harei potter. Not only b'shas hazeikai, but also ub'shas hamada badin. Wow. It seems like a way of finagling out. Now, guys, don't forget all of this. All of this is only by a tam. By a muad, it will make no difference. By a muad, if my shoyd is mazik to your property, my property is lien to you. We're speaking only about tam. Halacha.
I couldn't say when the shoyd hefker he just had the right to that animal.
Because the Torah says shoyd eyu. That's why. Right. And again, the chiddush is that we are extending it. That even if it was shoyre eyu when it did the damage, but until Hamad Badin, he can make it into no longer shoyre eyu. Halacha hey, shoyre Yisrael Shenagach goy shal nachri. Bein tam bein muad. Potter. Why is he potter? Now, potter means completely. Because very interesting rule. And therefore, if the guy's animal will damage me in their courts, if that would be the halacha, that was the halacha then, the goyim will not be mechayiv the owners. So it's not fair for us to have a different rule. Now, I want you to know that there is a big machlokes rishonim when it comes to the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach, and one of the Sheva mitzvahs is to establish dinim. What shad dinim? Some people hold dinim means that they have to follow dinei choshen mishpat. Clearly, that's not Shittas Rambam. But the Rambam is saying that when they have a judicial system, they're not mechayiv. Why are they mechayiv? It's not, they didn't do the damage. So if that is their halachas, then we have the right to interact with them like. But if it happened in the other way around, that's a knas. How didn't we just say that there didn't? So the Rambam writes, this was a special knas that we made for the goyim, because since lefisha einam zehirim b'mitzvahs, this means that they're not. This is before Mashiach. The goyim are not yet keeping Sheva mitzvahs, so that's not good. If they're keeping Sheva mitzvahs, and their din would be that they don't have to pay for a moiner hisik, we're fine with that. But they b'chlal are not keeping Sheva mitzvahs. They're very lax when it comes to monetary things. The ein misalkin a nezek, they are not that careful in removing a nezek.
And which system will force it?
If they are under tachas din Yisrael, if the im loit is chayiv oisen al niske behem ton, then b'chlal ein meshamre moison umafsidim amen habriyos. So to correct that laxity, we have like a chumrah.
Nowadays, do they have courts of
So Rabbi Chen is asking, nowadays, I think in the Western world, there's a lot more onus of responsibility than I know here. A lot of responsibility. Like I mentioned, even almost like I said, Midah Sudain. That doesn't matter. This detail doesn't matter. So there, in other words, it doesn't matter. Halacha vav. Toy a short tam shehizik. And im machari hamazik actually yamad bedin. Afal pishuhu machor. It's a proper sale. Harei hanizik goyva mimenu. Now, what's the problem over here, my friends? What did we learn before in halacha dalid? Shoyd hamiyuchad l'bam she'izik. So what we learned before, Rabbi Chen, is higdishoy or heftiroi. No, since now it's not shoy re'eyu, there's no lien on it. That's an halacha dalid. Here we're learning about it was sold from one re'eyu to another re'eyu. So there is a lien on the shoy. Now the sale is a sale. The new owner gets to keep it. But hanizik goyvem memenu. In other words, there's something called apoitika. Apoitika is a compilation of poi to hey koi. It means when something specific is linked for a debt. Again, if you got it to a hefkid, something else, or to a hegdish. But if you didn't do that, then it's an apoitika. Now, 1 second. The likeach says, hey, because that's all a reason why normally, and there is no such a thing as an apoitika on the taltalin. There's no such a thing because the loikeach can say, I never knew about it. Here he knew about it. And the so first of all, the nizak can collect it from the loikeach, but then the loikeach has to go and get the money back from the seller. Now, halacha zay. Higdish hamazik, hareze mugdash, and therefore nothing can be collected. But here the Rambam adds a line: Kedei shelo yoimru hegdish yoytze b'lepidyon. The only reason why the nizar cannot collect it from the hegdish is because people who won't know that this animal damage will think that Hegdish can leave Hegdish without pidyon, and the Chassam Sofer is the one that asks the question. This now is a stira, an apparent stira to Allah Chadal. In Allah Chadal, mashma, that Bechlal, Shoyre Eyu, even excludes this case. That was the end of Allah Chadal. Here, the Rambam, he's coming to the same conclusion, but he's giving a reason. And if not for that, then you would be able to collect. So that's the big contradiction. This is a big problem. Whoever has a chayin on notes late, look in footnote 6, and he gives one of the approaches how we could reconcile halacha zayin with halacha daled. Now, shchatai, another din, if the owner of the ox slaughters his ox, now that we established if it doesn't now belong to Hegdish or to Hefkid, the Nizek gets to collect. So that continues. Goyva hanizek mipsori. Nesane b'matana, masha aso asui, and the yigba hanizek mimenu. No, it doesn't nullify the gift, but the receiver of the gift now will become aware that he didn't get such a big gift. Unlike by sale, he cannot be goyvet, he cannot go back to the gifter. But now, the nizak will get payment. Halacha ches, hizik v'hamagdin, and the Beis Din paskin, my friends, that you got to pay migufay, and then you sold it. That's b'chlal, not a sale. Higdishay b'chlal le'ne mugdish. Nesane b'matana b'chlal lo yasakum. Next case. Kodmi bal chayv shal mazik. So here's what happened. My ox gored your ox, okay? Come. You only get to collect migufay if I don't pay you money. Prior to you collecting, I owed money to another Bal Chayv. And that Bal Chayv took this ox. You get it? Now, when did I owe that person money? Makes no difference for this halacha. Ben shechav achal hizik. Ben shechav achal hizik. Lo yizachu. Ela haniza goyve mimenu. Wow. At kedei kach. Shafilu hoyeloi. Shafilu hoya shel bal chayves mitchila. And still vehizik. Hadeza goyve migufay. All of this is all hilchais tam, that only chatzi, but nigufay. Now we're going to go from tam to amud. Halacha tes. Muad shehizik, everything changes. Why does everything change? Because if my animal is a muad and I have to pay nezek sholim, it's not nigufay. There's no lien to my animal. Bein olam bedin, bein olam bedin. And even because there's never a linkage between this animal to the debt. I owe you the money. They led the animal away. Those balchayves are zachubai because lafisha in b'shtalam anizik element hayafish b'nechsi amazik, and that they call mechasav mishabadam lenezik zetz, not specifically linked to this animal. Halacha yud, guys, we are learning about muad. Remember, not about tam. Halacha yud keshabeis din this kakan likbeis hanezik b'nechsi amazik. What do they begin with? First of all, goyven from all of the metaltalin that they can get their hands on, if that's possible. Now, im loy hoyel metaltalin klal, there wasn't enough metaltalin to cover the muad's nezek shalem, then goyv Hashem and karka. And now you have the unique din Torah. What type of karka? From idius or yafash ben achasav hamuul Hashem nischiyamazik. But the whole man shivim to metaltalin afilu subin ein is karka lakarka. There's a big rule. You can argue subin, of course, the same value of beans. But subin is like the worst metaltalin. Metaltalin, there's no such thing as idios. Metaltalin is metaltalin. And metaltalin have to come before karka. Only if you have to go to karka, then you get from the best. Now, halacha yudalev. Guys, there's a rule that whenever you collect from metaltalin from Yisraelim, you only collect from ziburis. Let's put it together. Meis hamazah koydim sheyishalem. Ein based in a skarkan metaltalin shel Yisraelim el lakak. I want to say like this, guys, that I know that Rambam is going to write it, but even before we read it inside, Yidden own land. Hashem gave us the Holy Land. Golus brought about the tragedy of not owning land. No, the Chazal say, Misha ein lekarka ein adam. It's a good thing to own land. Now, when I own land, if that's the norm, to make a rule to be goiva min karka is great. What happens if we're living in a society that very few people own karka? So after the Chasimas HaTalmud, the Ga'onim, Ksuba can be collected from metaltalin, Choyves can be collected from metal. That's what we're learning now was prior to the Takanas HaGa'onim. It's really the Amuad is collected from metaltalin before Karka. If the Mazik dies, Now you're collecting it from the Yisoimim. It changes. You don't collect chayvus from a tal. You go to karka. Another nuance: whenever you collect chayvus from any chayv from the metal, from the karka that was inherited by the Yisoimim, not only not idios, not even betanis, ziburis. The goyim lanizik mena ziburis. The pnei, this damage becomes like any other debt, and there is a din toira that metaltalin ein mishtabdem l'bal chayv. On the other hand, in tafas and nizik hamataltal mechaya hamazik, then he gets to keep it. Bechaya hamazik. Goyim lahem mehem achar moisoi. However, halacha yud bey, since particular hago oinim ligbeis bal chayvis min hamataltalin throughout, ksuba can be collected from metaltalin, all debts, and upasha takana zuba chavati dinim, which is very important even after the Chasimas HaTalmud. Lefi kach magmin anizakin min hamataltalin shal yisoimim. Now it goes back to metaltalin. But again, the im lo iniach metaltalin, then goyim min aziburis. Why ziburis? And that rule trumps the Torah's Yafasham and Achasim. Meitav Karmei, you can say Meitav Karmei, Meitav Sodeu is a pasuk in the Torah. Yeah, that's when you're collecting it from the mazik. Once you're collecting it from the heirs, they're not the mazik, they are a bal choiv. The mazik has a choiv. They're not called a mazik, they're called a bal choiv. Bal choiv you collect from the Ziburis from the Yisayim. And now the big klal, the big rule, halacha yud gimel, ein hanizokin mishtalmen, ve'ein chayovin ba'koifer, ve'ein behemon nehereges, ella beraya berura, meaning ube'edim in plural akshedim lahoid. And that's a big klal, because one might have thought otherwise, because the metzias is that animals don't live amongst people that much. Most of these damages are happening out there. If anything, there's one shepherd. One wrongfully would have said, come on, you have to be more liberal in proof, because you're not going to find two edim. I'm sorry, there's no two edim, you don't have to pay. In other words, shaloi toimar, hoyel ve'ein mitzoyin be'ur voice, or be'ur yois, however you pronounce it. Ur voice, hasusin, who are on all of these places where you have a lot of animals? Normally you have avodim, which, yeah, or you have royim, v'chayoytze behem. So come on, I mean, they're there. They're the ones that would know. Listen to them. By the way, we're not saying that all royim are not neman. We're saying that because many royim are not neman because they are the roya small behemadakon. Whatever. Your point is that the standards have to be kept there. Think about when kids, so then a kid saw it. People don't fight in the public, normal people. So the only one that saw was a woman. What, you can say you can't listen to her? Lower the standards for Adam. You might have said so. You would have. Don't say that. No, ain't a davar came. Oilam ein mechayven mamen al pi Adam ad sheyu halachically Adam akshedim lohoyet shad eduyois v'yoidu v'chayvu beis amazik l'shalim. And the final halacha yudalid shoy roya al gav hanor, an ox is pasturing on the edge of the river. This is called circumstantial evidence. And you find Shoyd Hargul with Sidoy, you find the ox next to him. Toite, Falpi, that the ox that's now pasturing is known. You can see that the ox that's dead got a knack, got a gore. And this ox is already a muad ligach. Right? That's called circumstantial evidence. Oh,
there's blood on the horns or whatever.
I'll tell you more than that. What happens, he's giving an example. A gamal ha'oiched is, I see a camel going into a herd, and he's going in there kicking and fighting. Now, I didn't see his kna killing that camel. Even a gamal ha'oiched ben agamalim, it means not that he has a muad from before. He entered a group, avil dechaya. and you see 2 minutes later a gamel harag b'tzidai ein loyminin bayadua shezeh haragai ad sheyiruhu edim kshedim.
Quick question, Rabbi. Quick question.
One second, yes, Kevin.
Oh, in chapter 7, if the animal that was gored and the victim couldn't take it to the market because the market was closed, who gets the loss?
Very good. That's a good question. In other words, if the whole reason, he's saying that the reason why if Chasan Avela, the Nizik has to swallow the loss because he should have sold it. What happens if it was Sunday, the market was closed? When an animal got injured, he doesn't eat the loss because he says he rightfully did not sell it. I don't know.